The outcast in the cold planet of Virox, kindness was weakness, and weakness meant death. Liara knew this since she was a child. She lived in the city of Drell. Hidden under red skies and black mountains, her people, the Virexians, were strong, proud, and cruel. They believed only the powerful should survive. The rest were useless. Liara was not strong. She was small, with pale purple skin and bright eyes that looked soft. She didn't fight, didn't shout, didn't hurt others just to prove a point. She helped injured animals. She shared her food. She smiled, and for that, they hated her. The others called her Ghost Girl because she didn't belong. Even her own mother stopped speaking to her. Her name was never called in gatherings. And when the war began between the tribes, they finally got rid of her one cold morning. The guards threw her outside the walls. Go find your place in the dirt. One of them laughed. You'll be dead by morning. But Liara didn't cry. She just walked, alone, into the frozen desert, for days. She survived by drinking dirty water and eating bitter roots. She slept in caves and hid from wild beasts. She missed the stars. Back in the city, she could see them at night. Now, clouds of ash covered the sky. On the seventh day, the ground shook. It started as a low sound like thunder, but deeper. She looked up and saw fire in the sky. Something was falling fast, burning through the clouds. It crashed into the cliffs nearby with a loud explosion that echoed for miles. Curious, Liara followed the smoke. She moved slowly, staying low. It could be a trap. Maybe her people wanted her to die from fire instead of cold. But something inside her felt different, like the stars were calling her again. When she reached the crashed site, she saw metal shining and broken. It looked like a ship, but not like any she had seen before. And then she saw him. A creature lay on the ground near the wreckage, tall, strange, with soft skin like hers, but not purple. He wore black armor, scratched and smoking. His face was bleeding. His eyes were closed. She had never seen anything like him. Liara froze. Was he dangerous? Was he still alive? She stepped closer. His chest moved slowly, but it moved. He was breathing. Her first thought was to leave. This wasn't her problem. She had enough troubles of her own. But as she turned to go, he made a sound, a small, painful sound, like a whisper from a dying star. She stopped. He was helpless, just like she had been. She looked around. No one else was there. No one would know if she left him to die. But she would know. Slowly, carefully, she walked back to him. She took a sharp rock and cut open the armor near his leg. It was burned and bleeding badly. She tore a piece of her cloak and wrapped it around the wound. His eyes opened. Brown eyes, tired, confused, afraid. He looked at her, then at his wound, then back at her. Who? He tried to speak. She didn't understand his words. They were soft and broken. SHH, she said, placing a hand on his arm. You're safe. I won't hurt you, of course. He didn't understand her either, but something in her voice calmed him. He closed his eyes again and breathed deeper. Liara knew she couldn't leave him here. Not alone. Not like this. So she did something she never thought she'd do again. She helped. She pulled him onto a flat piece of metal from the ship. She dragged him through the cold night. Using all the strength she had, hour by hour, she moved, stopping, only to rest her arms or listen for danger. By morning, she reached her cave. She lit a small fire and laid him near it. She gave him water. He was still weak, but alive. As she sat near the fire, she looked at him again. A human. She had heard stories about them, wild tales from the stars, powerful, clever, dangerous. Her people feared them, hated them, but this one, he was just a man, hurt and lost, just like her, and for the first time in many nights, Liara felt something strange, not fear, not pain. Hope. But in the shadows outside, something moved. Glowing eyes watched from the rocks above. A whisper floated through the wind. They were not alone. Asterisk, the human fire cracked softly inside the cave, casting flickering light across the stone walls. Outside, the wind howled like a warning, but inside, two beings from different worlds lay close to each other, one resting, the other watching. Liara hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she thought of the human. She didn't even know his name. He hadn't spoken since the night she found him, only groans of pain, whispers of words she didn't understand. He was still unconscious. His chest rose and fell, slow and uneven. The bandage on his leg was soaked in red. Liara had seen wounds before, but not like this. She had done what she could with herbs and water, but something told her he needed more than that. Medicine, real medicine, and yet, if she went back to the old city to search for supplies, she risked everything. Her people would kill her on sight, and if they found him, they'd kill him too without a second thought. But what choice did she have? She looked at the human again. His hand twitched slightly, as if dreaming. His face was calm now, but weak. He had saved her once already from the cold, from loneliness, even if he didn't know it. She had to save him now, but just as she stood to leave, a sound froze her in place, a faint crunch from the rocks above the cave. Someone was here. Lyra quickly grabbed the old spear she kept hidden behind a stone. It wasn't much, just wood and metal tied with rope, but it had saved her before. She moved silently to the mouth of the cave, pressing her back to the wall. Silence. Then, another crunch. Closer. She peeked out. Nothing. Just wind and rock. But Lyra had lived alone long enough to know, when the forest goes quiet, something is hunting. She turned back inside, checked the fire, and pulled more stones near the entrance. Not to block it, but to slow down anything coming in. Then she looked at the human. He had opened his eyes. Their eyes met. He was awake. His lips moved, but no words came out. He tried to sit up, but pain gripped him like chains. Lyra rushed to his side. "Don't move," she whispered. "You're safe, but something is out there." The human didn't understand her words, but he saw her face serious, alert. He nodded slightly and lay back. She gave him a small piece of root to chew. Bitter, but it helped numb the pain. Then, without another word, she crawled outside, silent as shadow. What she saw next made her breath stop. In the distance, just beyond the trees, 3 tall figures were moving through the dark. Not animals, not wild things, Phyrexian scouts from her tribe. She had seen them before, their armor made from bone and steel, their faces hidden behind cracked masks. They moved like ghosts, searching for prey. But what were they doing here? Did they see the crash too? She crawled back quickly. The human had sat up now, sweating, his hand on his side. He looked at her, confused but calm. She tried to explain. She pointed outside, then drew 3 lines in the dirt. He understood. Danger. He slowly pulled something from the black bag near him. A small device, silver, glowing faintly. He tapped it weakly, and a small blue light appeared. A map. A tracker. She didn't know what it meant, but she saw his eyes narrow. He whispered one word. "They're coming." His voice was rough, deep. Her heart jumped. He had spoken. He was real. Lyra grabbed her spear and stood by the cave entrance. If they were coming, she had to fight or run. But this time, she wasn't running alone. "Can you move?" she asked him, knowing he wouldn't understand. He tried to stand. Pain shot through his leg. He grunted, fell back, shook his head. Lyra looked at the rocks around them. She had one idea. Risky, stupid, maybe deadly. But it was all she had. She moved quickly, gathering dry leaves, branches, and moss. She piled them near the fire. The human watched, confused. Then she lit it. A second fire, bigger, smoky. The flames rose, black smoke filling the cave, then rising out through the cracks in the ceiling. A signal. The scouts would see the smoke and come faster, yes, but so would something else. Something above the clouds. Someone far away. She pointed up. The human looked at her, then at the smoke, then back at her. His eyes widened. He understood. A signal. He gave a weak smile. But outside, the sound of footsteps was getting closer, fast, heavy. Time had run out. They were coming, and the only way out was through. Enemies all around. Smoke curled into the sky like a message written in fire, a cry for help, or a trap. Inside the cave, Lyra stood still, heart pounding like thunder in her chest. Her spear shook in her hand, not from fear, but from something deeper. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about choice. She had chosen to save him. And now, they were coming. The human he still hadn't told her his name was sitting against the wall, one hand gripping his side, the other resting on a small black device. His armor was broken. Blood dried across his chest, but his eyes were clear now. He knew. He had been in battles before. Many, maybe. You could see it in the way he breathed slow, watched the shadows, and didn't waste movement. A soldier. But here, he was just a man with a weak body and no backup. Outside, the footsteps grew louder, Closer. Liara peeked through a gap in the rocks. 3 of them, just like before, tall, armored, armed. VI or EXXI scouts. Their blades gleamed like bone-white fangs. Their masks hid their faces, but she could still feel their hatred cold and sharp. They didn't come for her. They came for the Sky Dash Beast. For the human. They knew someone had survived the crash. Liara stepped back inside. We fight, she said softly, even though he wouldn't understand. We don't run. The human looked at her, then nodded once. Then something unexpected happened. He reached toward the device at his side, small, round, with a red button, and pushed it. A quiet beep, then nothing. Liara watched, confused. But he pointed at the ceiling, then held up to fingers. 2 hours to people, no to ships. No. 2 minutes. Help was coming, if they could survive that long. The first scout stepped into the cave's shadow. Liara waited, holding her breath. She pressed herself against the stone wall, her spear tight in her grip. Her heart raced, but her hands were steady. She had been prey all her life. Today, she would be the blade. The scout entered the cave, slow and silent. His weapon was long, curved like a serpent's tooth. Behind him, the others followed, covering the sides. They moved past her. They didn't see her. She struck with all her strength. She drove the spear into the back of the first scout. Not a killing blow, but enough to make him fall and scream. The second turn delayed. The human had already aimed from beneath his torn armor. He pulled a small weapon, a human pistol. He fired once, then twice. The second scout dropped. The third roared and charged. This one was bigger, faster. His weapon swung wide, slicing the air. Liara ducked, rolled to the side. The scout turned toward the human now, who had run out of bullets. The human tried to lift his arm again, but pain crushed him back. Liara screamed. She threw a rock. The scout turned just enough, and she leaped onto his back, jamming a broken piece of metal into the side of his helmet. They fell together. Dust rose. Silence followed. Then, slowly, Liara stood. Blood on her hands, bruises on her arms. But she was alive. So was the human. He looked at her not with surprise. But with respect. They had fought together, trusted each other without words. Outside, the sound of engines echoed through the mountains. Something big was coming. Not enemy ships. No, something else. Liara rushed outside. A dark shape descended from the clouds, silent, smooth, and fast. A human rescue pod. She turned back to the cave. Your people, she said. He smiled, just a little, but then his eyes changed. He looked past her. His face dropped. She turned. Another figure stood behind them, just beyond the smoke and bodies. This one wasn't a scout. This one was different. Taller, older. His mask was silver. His armor, red. Commander of the Exile Guard. Her old tribe's war leader. He had come himself, and he had seen everything. His voice was calm, deadly. So, the ghost girl still lives, and she serves the sky thing. He raised a weapon. The rescue ship was almost here, but Liara knew something now. She wasn't just fighting for the human anymore. She was fighting for herself, for her right to exist. To matter. To choose. As the commander stepped forward, she lifted her spear one more time, and this time, she didn't feel small. She felt like fire. The signally roar of engines drowned the wind. Dust spiraled through the air as the human rescue ship descended from the clouds, sleek, silver, and silent like a predator. Blue light scanned the ground as its legs extended, touching the rocky soil with a mechanical hiss. Liara stood frozen, her spear still raised, her body shaking. Blood ran down her arm, but she didn't feel it. Behind her, Jack the human was, barely holding himself upright. His wounds were worse now, but he refused to sit. He watched the ship with guarded eyes. He didn't smile. This wasn't over. The commander's body lay at Liara's feet, unmoving. Her final blow had pierced his chest, but his weapon had fired a single energy blast. It had missed her heart, but not by much. Jack reached for her. She stepped back. I'm fine, she whispered, though she wasn't sure he understood. The ship's doors opened. Soldiers stepped out. Not like her people, no masks, no bone armor. Just clean, dark uniforms, human, organized, calm. They pointed weapons at her, then at Jack. But Jack raised his hand weakly and said one word, friend. The soldiers paused. One of them stepped forward. He wore a different symbol on his chest, a red circle over a star, a captain. He looked at Jack, then at Liara. We picked up your emergency signal, he said. Thought we were chasing ghosts. Seems we were wrong. Jack didn't reply. His eyes were still on Liara. The captain turned to her. And who's this? Jack answered softly. She saved my life. The soldiers hesitated. One lowered his weapon, then the others followed Dot within minutes. They lifted Jack onto a stretcher and moved him into the ship. Liara stood back, unsure if she should follow Dot. No one asked her to come. No one told her to stay. She looked down at the earth, her home, broken, cold, cruel. Dot then up at the ship, silent, bright, unknown, and she made her choice. She walked aboard. Dot inside. The ship was clean and bright. The walls hummed with quiet power. Strange machines blinked softly. Everything felt alive, like the ship had its own heartbeat. They placed Jack in a medical pod. Glass walls, glowing blue fluid. Machines scanned him, repairing torn muscle, sealing wounds. He looked peaceful now, asleep. But safe. Liara sat beside him, still holding her spear. No one spoke to her. No one stopped her either. The captain returned after a while. He handed her a small translator, a thin metal piece that clipped behind her ear. Try this, he said. It'll help. She put it on. A soft vibration hummed in her skull. Can you understand me now? The captain asked. She nodded. Yes, your voice. It sounds strange. He smiled a little. You get used to it. Then his face turned serious. Your signal is signal. It went out in all directions, not just to us. What do you mean? I mean, others heard it too. He walked to a screen and pressed a button. Space appeared. A map of nearby systems. Red dots blinked. Across it, this is who's coming. Liara's heart sank. Dozens of signals, hundreds, all moving toward Virox. Not human, she asked. He shook his head. Some we know, most we don't. Scavengers, mercenaries, worse. They're coming for the crash. They're coming. For him, for whatever tech is left, and maybe for you. She clenched her fists. We have to stop them. The captain looked at her with a kind of respect now, not pity. You want to help us. I want to help him, she said. He gave me hope when no one else would. That matters. The captain nodded slowly. Then get ready, because we're not the only ones preparing. Meanwhile, far above the planet, beyond the reach of any radar, another ship floated in silence, black as night, sharp as a blade. Inside, a figure watched the signal logs. Its eyes glowed orange. Scanning the data, human presence confirmed. It whispered in a language older than stars. Another voice replied, and the outcast girl. Still alive. Unacceptable. The figure touched the screen. A hologram appeared. Jack, unconscious in the medical pod. Retrieve the human. The voice ordered. Destroy the girl. The figure nodded. Double quotes. Yes, high one. Then it turned and vanished into the shadows. Back on the human ship, Liara sat by Jack's side. He stirred. His eyes opened slowly. He looked at her. You stayed, he said, voice weak. Of course, she answered. You're not alone anymore. Jack smiled. For the first time, truly smiled. But outside the window, a second moon appeared. Except it wasn't a moon. It was a ship. It was coming fast. A trail of stars looked peaceful from the window of the human ship. But Liara had learned something about peace. It was always quietest before the storm. Jack was healing fast. The human technology was stronger than anything she had seen. Wounds that should have taken months to heal were already closing. Color had returned to his face. He could walk again slowly, but with strength in his step. And yet, Liara noticed something else. He was quiet, thoughtful, his eyes always searching, watching the stars like they were trying to speak to him. You're thinking, she said. He looked at her. I'm remembering. What? Home, he said. Earth, my people, my team. Most of them, they didn't make it. You came here in a ship, a mission, exploration, contact, and you crashed. He nodded. Double quotes, but he added, I survived because of you. She looked away. I survived because of you, she whispered. The ship hummed beneath their feet. It was moving now, slowly circling the planet, scanning for other life signals. Wreckage, danger. And then it found something. Another ship near the mountains where Liara had once lived. But this one wasn't human. The captain called them both to the command deck. We picked up a transmission, he said, from her people. Jack raised an eyebrow. What do they want? Liara's heart tightened. Probably revenge. The captain shook his head. No, they say they want to talk. A truce. They've seen what we can do. They're offering peace. Jack turned to Liara. Do you believe them? Her mind flooded with memories, the cruelty, the exile, the commander's cold eyes, the pain, the silence. No, she said, but they're not stupid. If they think you have something valuable, they might lie to get close. The captain rubbed his chin. They're asking for you, Liara. Not him. You. Her blood ran cold. They never wanted me before, she said. Why now? Despite her warnings. The meeting was approved. A landing zone was cleared in the forest, near a waterfall, open space. Neutral ground. Jack stood at her side as the alien ship arrived, bone white, spiked, hissing steam. 3 figures stepped out. The first one took off their mask. Liara gasped. Mother? The woman's face was older now, tired, but her eyes were the same, cold, sharp. You've grown, her mother said, and changed. You left me to die. We made a mistake. Liara's hands trembled. You made a choice, her mother. Step closer. The world is changing. We see now that perhaps you were right. The old ways failed. We want peace. Jack whispered. This is a trap. Liara nodded, but something inside her wavered. A piece of her, small and foolish, still wanted to believe her people could change. Her mother offered her hand. Come home. Liara stared at it, then at Jack, then back at her mother. Later, in the human ship's quarters, Jack paced restlessly. It doesn't add up, he said. After everything they did, now they want peace? Maybe they're afraid, or maybe they're planning something worse. Liara didn't answer. Her thoughts were fogged. That night, Jack found her on the observation deck, sitting alone. He sat beside her. You miss them. I don't know, she said. I miss the idea of family, but not the one I had. You have one now. Jack said quietly, us, this, whatever we are. She turned to him, eyes wide. Then the alarms blared. Red lights. Shouting voices. The ship shook. Boarding breach. The captain called. Deck 5. Jack grabbed his weapon. Liara followed. They reached the lower decks just as the blast doors opened. Phyrexian warriors stormed in masked, silent, fast. Betrayal. They didn't come for peace. They came for him. And Liara had led them in. No, she shouted. I didn't know. But Jack was already firing, pushing her behind him, pulling her toward the escape corridor. They ran, fighting through smoke and fire. But at the last turn, just before the escape pod, a figure blocked their path. Her mother. She raised her blade. He doesn't belong here, she said. Let him die, and we'll forgive you. You can come home. Jack raised his gun. Move. Liara stepped between them. Her voice shook. You left me, you hunted me, and now you lie again. Her mother's eyes narrowed. I'm offering you a place in the future. Liara looked at Jack, then at her mother. I already found mine. She pressed the pod door. A blinding flash. And then silence. The pod launched into the stars just as the human ship exploded behind them. Jack lay unconscious beside her, wounded again. Liara looked at the stars ahead. But in the darkness behind them, something followed. Something old, and it had been listening to the signal since the beginning. Asterisk. The choice of the escape pod drifted in the cold black silence between stars. Inside, the lights flickered, systems failing, oxygen low. And Jack, unconscious, his breathing was shallow, his chest barely moved. Liara sat beside him, cradling his head in her lap, whispering words he couldn't hear. You can't leave me now, she said. Not after everything. Her hand trembled as she checked the console. No signal. No navigation. They were lost. Until a light blinked. Faint, distant, red. A station. Half a day's drift. No name, no flag, no welcome. But it was something. Liara rerouted all remaining power. Engines coughed to life. The pod turned, and slowly they began to fall toward it. The station hung in space like a graveyard arc, cracked. Metal twisted into strange shapes. Pieces of ships floated nearby, some human, some not, all broken, all silent. No transmissions, no movement, just the dull hum of old power systems. Liara guided the pod into the docking bay. The doors creaked open. She stepped out, dragging Jack behind her. Her breath fogged the cold air. Her hands ached. The place felt wrong, not dead. Watching. Inside, the station was a mazemental corridors, dim lights, ancient tech still humming. She followed emergency lights, searching for life, and then she found it. A dorm marked into languages, Human Research Division, restricted access beneath it, a symbol. A star wrapped in flame. She touched the panel. It slid open. What she saw next froze her to the core. Rows of stasis pods. Inside, not humans, not aliens. But both. Hybrids. Creatures that looked like her yet carried something else. Something familiar. She stepped closer. Each pod was labeled. Project Unit of Virixian Homo sapiens compatibility subject. Failed subject. Terminated. Her hand covered her mouth. Jack had told her Earth's first contact with aliens ended in disaster. But he never said why. Because the truth had been buried. Humans hadn't come just to explore. They had come to test. A noise echoed behind her. Jack groaned. He was awake. But someone else had entered the room. A figure in white. Human. Tall. Gray beard. Cybernetic eye. I was wondering when one of you would come back, he said, voice calm, cruel. Welcome to the Forgotten. Liara stepped in front of Jack. Who are you? Dr. Isaac Wren, lead geneticist. Last survivor of Project Unity. Your people killed the rest. Because you were creating monsters, she snapped. No, he said. We were creating peace, evolution, future. And then, your kind panicked, destroyed everything. But it's not over. He walked to a console, pressed a button. All pods powered on. I've been waiting for a hybrid who could survive both worlds, he said. And now, I have to. Let's scan her and Jack. Compatible, the computer said. Synchronization, stable. No, Liara whispered. We're not your experiment. But you are, he said. And now, you have a choice. He raised the device. Jack's pod started to fill with gas. He was choking. Stop, Liara shouted. Your choice is simple, Doctor. Wren said, join me, or he dies. Her body shook. She looked at Jack, his face pale, lips blue. She had been powerless her whole life, thrown away, used, hunted. But not now. Not anymore. She turned to Wren. And made her choice. She moved like lightning, grabbed a metal pipe, threw it at the console. Sparks flew, glass shattered. Wren shouted. Alarms blared. She ran to Jack, smashed open the pod. Gas poured out. He fell into her arms, coughing. Alive. Guards stormed in automatons, metal and guns. Liara ducked behind cover. Her mind raced. Then she saw it. An emergency reactor terminal. Unstable, volatile, explosive. Her path out. Hold on, she whispered. To Jack. She pressed the overload key. 10 seconds. They ran. Alarm screamed. Wren shouted. You don't know what you're destroying. Yes, I do, Liara said. A future where you belong. She looked back one last time. I already chose where I belong. She hit the final release. They jumped into an escape hatch. The reactor exploded. Light filled the corridor, and behind them, the station died. They drifted again. Silent. Lost. But this time, not hopeless. Jack opened his eyes in her arms. You saved me again. She smiled. Get used to it. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, the signal from the explosion reached a black ship. A voice whispered in the dark, the hybrid lives. Send the fleet. The Outcast hair stars were quiet, but silence is not peace. Not anymore. Liara stood at the edge of a command deck, her eyes scanning the darkness beyond the viewport. She wore armor now, not like her people's and not like the humans. Something new, something hers. The symbol of her past, a cracked flame, was gone, replaced by a silver spiral. A star in motion, evolution, changed out behind her. Human officers worked silently, their screens flashing red. Incoming. From all sides. Ships. Hundreds of them. Not Virixian, not human. The ones who had been listening since the signal. We have 10 minutes before they breach the outer perimeter, the human captain said. Jack stood beside Liara. Healed, ready, quiet. This isn't a battle, she said. It's a message. What kind of message? Jack asked. The same one I carried all my life. She answered. That the weak don't matter. That kindness is useless. That survival is everything. She looked out at the approaching fleet, but they're wrong. 1 week earlier, after escaping the destroyed research station, Liara and Jack had been picked up by a remote human scout ship. There, the truth had come to light. The Black Fleet was real, ancient, silent, powerful. A species that lived on harvesting technology and life from broken worlds. And their hunger had turned toward Virax and Earth. The final stage had begun. Now, as the first wave approached, Jack offered her a gun. She didn't take it. They expect weapons. She said, I'm giving them something else. She opened. A private channel. The fleet responded. An eerie voice answered, we saw your signal. We saw the hybrid strength. Surrender your worlds and survive. Liara stepped forward, her voice clear, strong. I am not your experiment, not your harvest, not your slave. You want someone to surrender. Find another galaxy. There was silence. Then, you are alone. She smiled. No, she said, I'm not. The human fleet rose behind her, not as conquerors but as allies. And then, something unexpected happened. On the other side of the stars, ships appeared, Phyrexian. Not many. But enough. Her people, those who once exiled her, they had seen her signal too. And they chose to stand beside her. Not because they had changed, but because she had. The battle began. Stars exploded with light. Missiles flew. Shields cracked. Liara led the charge not from the back, but the front. Her ship dove through chaos, disabling fleet control nodes, redirecting enemy fire, clearing paths for others. At one moment, Jack's ship was cornered. She broke formation to save him. Not because he was weak, but because he had taught her what strength really was. In the heart of the enemy fleet, she found it. The source ship, massive, pulsing, hive like. Everything came from here. She transmitted a final message. You tried to erase the Outcast. Instead, you made her unforgettable. Then she launched herself inside. Alone. The final battle was not with weapons. It was with memory. The source ship was sentient. It showed her visions, her exile, her pain, her shame, tried to break her mind. But Liara had already lived through worse. It tried to offer her power. She chose purpose. It tried to make her forget. She remembered everything. And at the center of it all, she found the control core, a living network, glowing, beating like a heart. She placed Jack's emergency transmitter on it, the one that had saved him, the one that had started it all, and activated the signal. Except this time, it didn't call for help. It sent a virus. The human data merged with her alien genetics, something unique, something unpredictable. The core screamed. The ship began to collapse. Liara closed her eyes and smiled. When the light faded, silence returned. The Black Fleet shut down. Lifeless. Across the galaxy, enemy ships lost power, fell, drifted. It was over. Days later, a ceremony was held in orbit over Virex. For the first time, humans and Phyrexians stood on the same ground, not as enemies, but survivors. Leaders from both sides spoke, but no one spoke louder than her silence. Liara stood apart. She wore no crown, no medal. But everyone knew her name, the outcast who saved the worlds. Jack approached her quietly. You did it. No, she said, we did it. He offered her a place on the New Earth Virex Council. She shook her head. I'm going home. To Virex, to the stars. She stepped onto a small ship, hers now. Alone, again. But not lonely. This time, by choice. As the ship lifted, Jack called out, what will you do? She smiled. Whatever I want. And she vanished. Into the sky. The end.